Hi everyone, it's Miss Robin here with virtual Storytime live, because it's not so much live, but we are still going to have a great time. So, this week we're going to talk about camping, and one of the best things about camping is you get to eat s'mores. I love s'mores, marshmallows and chocolate and graham crackers, and you smush it all together. So, the first book I'm going to read to you is called Fred and Ted Go Camping. Let's see what happens when they go camping. I wonder if they'll eat some s'mores. Ted and Fred were friends. They liked to go camping in the woods. One day, they packed their cars. They were going camping. They drove to the woods. Fred took many things. You see how many things he has? Oh my goodness. Ted took a few things. They parked their cars and walked into the woods. Fred liked this spot, and Ted liked it too. Fred had a hard time with his tent, and Ted had an easy time with his tent. He just pulled a string and pop, it opened. That night, Fred was awake, and Ted, he was asleep. And you see the owl, he was awake too. The next morning, Ted woke up early, and Fred woke up late. They took their boat to the lake. Fred took the heavy end, and Ted took the light end. They put their boat in the water. Ted stayed dry. What do you think happened to Fred? He got wet. They fished. Ted used a net, and Fred used a pole. Ted got 10 little fish, and Fred got one big fish. Splash! The boat tipped over, and the little fish jumped out. Fred and Ted swam away from the big fish. Ted swam fast, and Fred swam faster, and Fred ran fast, and Red ran faster. And now Ted was hungry, and Fred was hungrier. Then they heard a little bird. Look up in the tree, look down at your feet, and you will soon find something to eat, sang the little bird. Fred looked up. He saw nothing. Ted looked down. He saw something. Berries. Fred looked up again. Bonk! Something hit him on the head. A nut! And they found some apples. They went back to camp. Ted ran with the berries, and Fred walked with the apples and the nuts. They cooked the apples and the nuts in a pan on a fire. They ate it all up. Ted ate slowly, and Fred ate quickly. What about those berries? They saved the berries for last. Yum, and they shared. But they didn't have any s'mores, so we have to find somebody who has some s'mores. I know you all love Pete the cat, and he too goes camping. Let's see if he gets to eat some s'mores. Pete is excited to go camping. This is his first time. Don't forget your sleeping bag, says Dad, or your hiking boots, Mom says. The campsite is deep in the woods. Mom and Dad set up the tent. Pete and Bob help collect sticks so they can make a fire later. Pete and Bob go for a hike. Bob shows Pete the footprints of different animals. Do you think we'll see anything cool, asks Pete. Maybe, says Bob. Pete and his dad go fishing. They must be very quiet and very still to catch a fish. Fishing takes a long time. They finally catch some fish. Mom builds a fire. She cooks the fish for dinner. It tastes yummy. Next, Pete roasts marshmallows. That's what I'm talking about. And Pete makes s'mores with chocolate and graham crackers. Those are so delicious. It starts to get dark out, and Bob tells Pete a story about a scary, hairy giant. The giant lives in the woods. His name is Bigfoot. Do you think Bigfoot lives here? Asked Pete. No one has ever seen Bigfoot, says Bob. Don't let Bob scare you, says Dad. Bigfoot is not real, Mom says, and Pete sighs with relief. But if he is real, I bet he's friendly, says Dad, and he probably likes s'mores too. That's not scary, thinks Pete. Maybe he wants his s'more, and Pete leaves one for his hairy friend. What a good guy Pete is, huh? Soon it's time for bed. Lights out, boys, Dad says. Bob and Pete share a tent. Bob gets into his sleeping bag. It is cozy, but he cannot sleep. The woods seem extra dark, and all the sounds seem extra loud at night. Pete hears a weird whooshing sound. What is that? He asks Bob. That's just the wind, says Bob. Pete hears an odd chirping noise. What is that? He asks out loud. Those are just crickets. Pete hears a strange hooting sound. What is that? He wonders. That's just an owl. Pete thinks of his friend Owl. Pete hears a loud snapping sound. Crack! What is that? He wonders. But Bob is already asleep. Pete listens carefully. Crack! Is it Bigfoot? Pete peeks outside. It is too dark to see anything. When Pete wakes up, he checks the spot where he left that s'mores for Bigfoot, and it's gone. And there's a note, and it says, "Thank you for the treat, XOXO." Pete shows his family. Wow, I knew Bigfoot was real, says Bob. Pete knows Bigfoot is not scary. Just because he looks different does not mean he's scary, and he even likes s'mores too. He must be a really friendly guy if he likes s'mores, huh? Oh, let me read you this one. This one is very, very cute. Have you guys been camping? I went camping a really, really long time ago. I haven't been camping in a long time. Some people really love camping. So this is called A Camping Spree with Mr. Mcgee. And this probably rhymes, and those are like some of my favorite stories to read. Let's see what happens with Mr. Mcgee. Oh, I'm excited. Early one morning at 7:03, Mr. Mcgee and his little dog Dee packed up the camper and hitched up the load, hopped in the Rambler, and then they hit the road. They drove to the mountains far from the sea for 2 nights of camping, or possibly 3. There's nothing like camping, said Mr. Mcgee. I know you will love it. Just wait and see. The views are fantastic. There's hardly a sound. Aside from the wildlife, there's no one around. The air is so sweet, you'll sleep like a log, said Mr. Mcgee to his small spotted dog. There's the doggy. A few hours later, they took a sharp right and found a great spot to lay camp for the night. It was high on a hill. What a beautiful view. Oh, Mount Adams, Mount Lincoln, and Jefferson, too. But perhaps the most beautiful feature of all was the brook that ran over a steep waterfall. Do you guys see the waterfall? Dee gathered pine cones and branches and logs, and Mcgee made a campfire and cooked some hot dogs. And as the sun set behind distant knolls, they sat roasting marshmallows over the coals. As the embers went out, they felt tired and dozy, so they climbed in their bunk beds all comfy and cozy. But while they were falling asleep without care, along came a stumbling, bumbling bear. A kindly old bear whose sight wasn't too clear. He couldn't see far and he couldn't see near, but he could smell marshmallows, sticky and sweet. That smell made him hungry and he wanted a treat. Of course he did, because everybody loves marshmallows. He sniffed out the place where the marshmallows lay, but the car and the camper were in the bear's way. Yet that didn't stop that sneaky old snitch. He simply tried squeezing right under the hitch, and as she was shimmering into the gap, he pushed up the hitch, which let go with a snap. That's the hitch. It keeps the car and the trailer together. Let's see what happens. Now the camper and the car were untied, and they started to roll down the rocky hillside, and the car bounced away on old logging road while the camper was heading to where the stream flowed. It flew down a hill in a wide, bumpy ride with Dee and Mcgee sleeping soundly inside. Oh no! They were snoring and snoozing, enjoying a dream, when splash went the camper right into the stream. The splash took the camper. They bumped out of bed. Now, what in the world was that, Mcgee said. And when he looked out and saw where they were, his hair stood on end, and so did Dee's fur. They were caught in the rapids, but that wasn't all. They were heading smack dab for the big waterfall. Dee and Mcgee both started to quiver, and faster they headed down river. But just when they thought they'd fall over the edge, their camper got stuck on a rock on a ledge. So there they were, stranded, Mcgee and his pup, on top of the waterfall, 50 feet up. Let's see what happens. Meanwhile, their nearsighted bear from before was searching for one little marshmallow more, when lo and behold, as out of a dream, he spied something sweet floating over the stream. But what the bear thought was a marshmallow treat was really the hitch, and not something to eat. The bear was determined to capture his prize, so he jumped in the water right up to his thighs, and he splashed through the stream to the edge of the fall and snatched up the trailer, the hitch and camper and all. Dee felt a tug. Mcgee heard a knock as the bear pulled the camper right off the rock. He dragged them both all the way back to the bank. When he realized the hitch was not sweet, but quite rank, he spit out the hitch and left in dismay, while Mcgee and Dee's camper again rolled away. It flew down the path with a jolt and a jar and stopped in some bushes right next to the car. Dee popped her head out, and Mcgee looked out too. Had they really stopped rolling? Could it be true? At last things were quiet and peaceful and still. They hooked up the hitch and they drove down the hill. And on the way home, Mcgee said to Dee, "That trip wasn't quite like I thought it would be." So when they got home with the sky turning red, they decided to camp in their backyard instead. And again, they still had marshmallows, because that is the coolest thing to have. The absolute coolest. Now, I know you guys love Daniel Tiger. He's going camping too. Everyone's camping this summer. Hi, neighbor. Today, I am going camping. I will pack my sleeping bag. Dad packs the tent and the food. So what have we learned so far when you go camping? You need a tent. I'll probably need a sleeping bag. Of course, you need some food. And they took the trolley to the campsite. And Katrina and Prince Wednesday and Miss Alania were there too. I helped my dad put up the tent. I hold one side and he holds the other side. That's good helping, Daniel. Oh no, the tent fell down. We fixed it, Dad, I said. We are camping tigers. The tent is like a cozy little house, and I am excited to sleep in it. King Friday tells us we're going on a nature walk. I wonder what they'll find on their walk. They look for treasure. They found a pine cone and a rock with moss and an acorn. Cool. Prince Wednesday, he does not find a treasure. We can help you look, we say, because that's what friends do. Soon we find it. It is a seed from a maple plant. It spins and twirls in the air. We spin and twirl too. That's fun. Oh, it's time for dinner. I wonder what they're going to have for dinner. My dad cooks a campfire stew, and it is so yummy. And Music Man Stan plays his guitar, and they sing songs. That's another thing people do around the campfire. Daniel Tiger loves camping. I wonder if he had any s'mores. Because you know what? I didn't see that he had any s'mores. I just don't know. Okay, we have one more story about Digger and Daisy, and guess what? they're going camping too. Everyone's camping. It is summer, and Daisy gets her backpack. She gets her sleeping bag too. Let's go camping. But Digger is worried. There might be bears. Don't worry, said Daisy. It will be fun. Digger and Daisy walk down the path. There is a noise, and Digger hears it. He looks all around. He is worried. I hear a bear, says Digger. No, says Daisy. Bears growl. It is just a bird, and it is singing. Can we sing too, says Digger. Yes, said Daisy. It is fun to sing while you hike. I wonder what song they were singing. Digger and Daisy sing while they hike, and soon they come to a lake. There is a noise. Digger hears it. He looks all around. He is worried. I hear a bear, he says. No, Daisy said. Bears growl. It's just a fish, and he is jumping in the lake. Can we jump in the lake too, says Digger. Yes, says Daisy. It is fun to jump in a lake. Digger and Daisy jump in the lake, and soon it is time to come out. Digger is cold. We'll make a fire, says Daisy. It will warm us up. Daisy looks for sticks, and Digger looks for sticks too. There is a noise. Digger hears it. He looks all around. He is worried. I hear a bear, says Digger. No, says Daisy. Bears growl. It's just a squirrel, and he's finding nuts. Can we find nuts too, says Digger. Yes, says Daisy. Nuts are good to eat. Daisy and Digger find nuts, and they eat them by the fire, and they eat hot dogs too, and you guessed it, marshmallows. It will be dark soon, says Daisy. We need to put up the tent, and Digger helps Daisy. Digger and Daisy get into their sleeping bags, and there is a noise, and Digger hears it, and he looks all around, and he is worried. I hear a bear, he says. No, says Daisy. Bears growl. That is just the wind. Go to sleep, Digger. Daisy closes her eyes, and soon she is asleep. But Digger is not. Digger hears the wind. I'm not worried, thinks Digger. That is not a bear. Digger hears a fish jump. I am not worried, thinks Digger. That is not a bear. Digger hears an owl hoot. I am not worried, thinks Digger. That is not a bear. Digger closes his eyes, and soon he is asleep. Now there is another noise. Digger does not hear it, but Daisy does. She opens her eyes. It is dark. She grabs her flashlight. Daisy looks all around. She is worried. Digger, wake up. I hear a bear. When Digger wakes up, the noise stops. Go back to sleep, says Digger. Great bears growl. That was just me snoring. Oh, I think that could have been one of my favorites. So I hope you had a great time listening to all the stories about camping, and I